Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pivotal Practices. This is our 9th episode of the podcast. And if you're interested, do me a favor and just hit the subscribe button under the video. It's really easy button, and it'll help let you know when new episodes are released. And so this is, as I said, the 9th episode, and we are going to, in the next episode on the 10th, actually start to cover boundaries and what that means and how to address boundaries, how important they are and why. And I should have a special guest, which I'm excited, and I don't want to give away who that is, so I'll let that be a surprise. So what I want to do today is finish the chakra system. And if you remember, we have the 7 main chakras, and we have covered 5 out of the 7. And today we want to finish with the last 2. And the last 2 are of the highest vibration in the chakra system, remembering that the root chakra is the slowest vibration in the chakra system, and each chakra increases in vibration as they go up throughout our body, and the crown chakra is of the highest vibration. And so we want to finish going over that system, remembering that our energy body is really important. It's just as important as our muscular system, our skeletal system, our nervous system. Remember, that includes our auric field, all 7 chakras, all of our meridians. All of those are energetic, ethereal body, and it can affect our physical body, our emotional well-being, and have long-term effects if we aren't careful to find balance at times in all of these areas of our energy body. So let's just finish that journey through the chakras today. And so we're going to be going to the 6th chakra, and that is called the third eye. And so one of the ways that we can think of it, remember that I said the root chakra is more like the bottom of a Pringles can. And then the second, the sacral, the solar plexus, our heart chakra, our throat chakra is more facing like this, where we have the front of the location and the back body is the back of the location. What's interesting, though, is the third eye actually starts to kind of move at an angle, and it's angled where the very front of the third eye is actually here, right in between your eyebrows, right in between where the eyes come together. Right here, you can just gently touch. It's above the nose. You can give a little rub in a circle just to feel where the front of the third eye is. Where the back of the third eye is when you take your fingers behind your head, go to the base of your skull, and you'll feel your occiput, which is the base bone. It is the actual base of the skull, and you're going to go to the base of your skull with your fingertips, and you're going to slowly bring your fingers to the center, and there should be this soft spot at the base right in the center. And I like to say it's almost like kind of like an upside down U. And when you feel that soft spot, that's the back of your third eye. So if you're looking at my head, the back of my third eye is down here, but my third eye is up here. So it's not in a straight line, right? It's actually angled downward, right, to the back part of the skull, and then upward at the front of the face. So I should say near the base of the forehead, right in between the eyes. So that is more something that we want to understand. As we get to the crown chakra, which we'll go over after the third eye, it's that top of the Pringles can where it's open at the top, right? And the back of the crown is actually on the inside of our skull, on the inside of our body. So what we want to talk about is in the Sanskrit term for the third eye, and this one is a little bit harder, and it's Anja, which is Anja, and then the mantra for this is Om or Aum, which is more like Aum. Either one works for the third eye. The location, as I said, is in between the eyebrows and the center of the head, and the color is indigo. So the color associated with the third eye is a mix between blue and purple. It's a really pretty color. And so usually if you're drawn to that color, if you find yourself again wearing those colors, there's usually a reason. It's like either that part of your body, whatever colors you're being drawn to, sometimes they're showing that that chakra is very much in balance, or maybe it's trying to find more balance. That's why you tend to be gravitating towards those colors more. But also that color, just utilizing it for something like color therapy would help bring balance to the third eye. So the endocrine gland is the pineal gland, and you will hear it called pineal gland or pineal gland. Again, remembering, as I said in like the first podcast, anatomy terms sometimes have a couple different ways that you'll hear them pronounced, and it's just like different variations. Those are one and the same, right? They just are pronounced two different ways that you'll hear that gland pronounced. And that is the actual gland that is for the sleeping and waking state, right? When we talk about melatonin. So in my studying, I have read where certain places have actually put the master gland, known as the pituitary gland with the third eye, and the pineal gland with the crown chakra. And I just highly disagree, for the reason that the pituitary gland literally is the master gland that controls all of the other endocrine glands. And so the crown also is the master chakra, where we receive that spiritual life force energy, that chi energy that then comes in and filters through the other chakras, filters through the meridians, right? So to me, it doesn't make sense how that got swapped in certain areas, but the way I have taught it and the majority of the readings that I have found, we put the pineal gland with the third eye. So just want to let you know that sometimes you will see that, but personally and in my studies, I don't agree. Okay. So one of the mantras that we say with this one is I reflect. So the third eye is this place where we have this deep intuition, this deep inner knowing, the ability to feel things and see things that are not said, the ability to also just have this inner knowing about what's right and wrong, or an inner knowing that you just can't explain at times, but you end up finding an affirmation that that was right, or you notice the theme that whenever you get these certain feelings, you're usually on the right track. Okay. So intuition is a birthright given to everybody. Everybody has intuition if they hone into it, if they take the time to meditate and actually get used to working with their third eye. But not all people realize it, depending on whether they've tried to, or if they don't have close body awareness, or if they don't care to even try to understand it. That can also sometimes stand in the way of them really utilizing intuition. And then you also have your body workers and your Reiki practitioners and people that are really spiritual, and their intuition is part of their everyday life. They're honed in on it, and they can really feel it and navigate life with it as something that protects them, but also helps them decipher situations and moments in time that are going on around them, right? Or even environments. So I would say that if you asked my clients or my students, yes, I have been very intuitive since I was young. It was very natural for me. So it just seemed like it got more fine-tuned as I worked with it and I got older. But it was a natural gift that I feel like God had given me that was definitely a dominant gift for me. Okay. So the third eye is related to our dreaming state. And so when you're dreaming, sometimes some of the dreams that you have are ways that we release our stress, or ways that we release subconscious thoughts. And dreaming is really good for us in a way to also filter life, but also to give us rest, right? There's these conscious abilities for our consciousness to be at rest, but yet release these bigger things. And then there's also the ability to have visions while you're dreaming, or spiritual visions. And those usually, the way I can describe them is they're way more vivid. The a spiritual vision when you're dreaming, or something that might be, let's say, prophetic in nature, is really vivid. The details you seem to remember. Everything seems to be so slow that you consciously took in like way more details and way more about it than your normal dreaming state. Okay. So as we know that this deeper intrinsic knowledge that's in the third eye is actually, again, a birthright that has been with us since we've been born. And we want to know that the pineal gland is responsible for holding and releasing melatonin, so our waking and dreaming cycles. So that's important. And our third eye also governs this clairvoyance that we should have, and this deep inner knowing, and the ability to seek truth. One of the things that tells me that a person is very traumatized by what's coming out of their mouth or self-limiting beliefs, whether it's been trauma that's locked into the third eye or even the solar plexus, when there's this deep connection of this trauma between them, it's almost like the person has warped realities that they're taking in their environment. Instead of seeing a situation or a person for just what is really there, the way most people would see it, due to their traumas, this negative effect of how they're perceiving the world, right? Like, I'll give you an example. If they've been raped or beaten by their spouse for years, or a battered wife, they might just think, again, all men are jerks. Well, that's not healthy. That's not good at all. That's a self-limiting belief. You're judging a whole, human race and a certain gender on trauma and what one man has done to you, or woman, right? We could flip it in the other direction. And so when they start going out in the world, their trauma would show them that man's doing this right now. He's looking at me funny. He's like all other men, right? These are the thoughts that start going through their heads. Trauma thinking has a defensive thinking that's not really realistic, and then they're always on alert. And this shows up in the third eye, right? This misalignment will show up in their perceptions of the world or people, and that also reveals to a counselor that there's healing needed, right? So responsible for the way you perceive people and situations, closely related to the eyes, ears, and what we would say the polarity of the left and right side of the brain. So we have these infinity channels, and we have one right here. It's like an energy channel that actually is supposed to move in this figure 8 rhythm. And that rhythm helps the communication between the left and the right sides of our brain. Our left and right sides of our brain need to have this free-flowing energy and the ability to adapt, right, to situations, to circumstances, to also physical things going on, whether we're working out. And when this rhythm is disrupted, and third eye disruption can disrupt this, a Reiki practitioner can come in and reset that rhythm, get that rhythm to be smoother and more uniform. It also can cause sporadic emotional thoughts or anxiousness or the inability to concentrate, right? We know that this rhythm, when it gets disrupted, causes an imbalance in the mind, okay? So we also want to add that the third eye is the center of our thought and abstraction, our ability to take abstract concepts, the ability to utilize taking in a lot of information, and let's say an environment where there might be a lot going on, or when we're in school, when we're in college, when we're reading deep information or reading a book, right? So the ability to also meditate on a subject so that the understanding and wisdom of it reveals itself to us, okay? Most things, even if they're really difficult, because some of us will say something like, I can never comprehend math, or I really am terrible at this subject. And I would say to you, you could maybe have more of a weakness in learning that subject, that might not be your high-end gift, but if you would give yourself to paying attention to that and not give up, it would open itself up to you over time, okay? It really does open itself up to you. Knowledge and wisdom comes from the brilliance of our brain, and sometimes subjecting yourself over and over again to the subject of concern or the subject that you're trying to learn. So an example, and most people are shocked by this, was when I was in college, I was learning medical terminology and all of these medical things and exercise physiology and sports nutrition and different things with psychology. But anatomy and physiology was really hard for me to get down, like really hard. I would go to my college professor's office. She was so patient and wonderful. And I would go weekly, sometimes twice a week, to keep going over the terms and trying to understand things. And I just kept for years, just like really working hard so that it would click. And one day it just clicked, even though it took me so long and so much extra effort. And to most of my students or my yoga students, they think that's crazy because I can flip it around like a Rubik's Cube now. But that was how much dedication and effort my brain needed to really get the concepts of it together and also be able to utilize it in 3D when you're working on the body as a medical massage therapist or on the energy body, and seeing how everything is so interconnected. So I encourage you to not give up on things just because they're difficult. If you really want to learn them, just dedicate yourself to it and be really patient and give it time. So another thing that we want to talk about with the third eye is when this chakra is out of balance, it can tie in, as I said, with the solar plexus, but lead to extreme ego issues. Okay. So ego-led issues or ego-led instability. And this could mean something like the person is either more narcissistic in nature. This could mean that they have narcissistic qualities but aren't like a full-blown narcissist. This could mean that the person is prideful, not confident. Being confident is okay. Pride, though, is not a good thing. Pride is actually a negative thing. So pride is when I think I deserve to be heard over other people. I'm better than you, right? So we want to know that confidence is important, but also if you remember when we talked about the solar plexus, somebody that's been traumatized will also have a lack of confidence and the ability to live out their dreams out of unworthiness, let's say if they were physically or emotionally abused. So again, we are seeing there's this deep connection between the solar plexus and the third eye. Having to do with our cells, what cells are governed by the third eye? The melatonin, as we said, our face and our head, also our ears, our eyes, and our nose. So we will see that the shoulders can be involved with the third eye. Or I'm sorry, that's with the throat. Scratch that. With the third eye, we will see that most of the things would be like eyes, nose, ears. We might see showing up also like jaw issues, right? Up in the area over here in the upper jaw. Cranial sacral work works on what we call the sphenoid bone. And the sphenoid bone looks kind of like a bat or like a butterfly. It's this really interesting looking bone where all the other cranial bones articulate with it. When the third eye is off, the sphenoid bone will also be off. And that's something that cranial sacral therapists can palpate. That's something that I work on in that therapy. And then ways to balance the third eye: reading spiritual texts or scripture, reading things that are self-help books, things that are on meditation, things that help the mind to be healthy, doing intuitive exercises. Yoga does help the third eye if it's more like yin yoga, gentle, long meditation, slow type of yoga that combines the breath, practicing stillness and prayer. And I think for some people, and we'll get into this in a moment more in depthly, they don't know how they feel about spirituality or where they want to be spiritual or what that means for them. And that is a progression of a life lesson. We can choose to put our hands against that and away from it, but most people with age want to find a deeper meaning with life and go on a spiritual journey trying to figure that out. And that's a natural what we would call phase of life. Okay. So signs that the third eye is out of balance: headaches, like we're getting headaches or migraines, we're being dogmatic, we're noticing that we're being overly critical or overly logic or analytical in our thoughts. And the last thing is the inability to see the truth in people and situations. So that can be a hard one, right? So it is important to remember that as much as body work matters, if I've been through trauma, I also want to see a good counselor or a therapist, but I want to make sure that that counselor or therapist works well with me, right? That they challenge me in the right ways and articulate things in the right ways, and we have a good rapport, okay? We don't want a therapist that's only one-sided to things. And what I mean by that is, over all my years of counseling and going off and on throughout my life, sometimes you'll find counselors that have their own prejudices, and they might just feel, due to a religious way that they believe, that the man is solely in charge and you only submit to him, and you're coming to him about an abusive husband and he keeps pushing you back into an abusive man's arms, right? And again, this can be flipped. This could be a female counselor pushing you back into an emotionally abusive woman's arms, right, in your marriage. Whatever it may be, we want to make sure that the counselor is healthy too, okay? So that matters. Just like we would say that all human beings have something that they do in life. Human beings make up all the doctors, the nurses, the body workers, the teachers, but that doesn't mean that all body workers, doctors, and teachers are aligned or not doing something correct or crooked, right? So we still want to use discernment, but we want to also acknowledge that counseling is really needed after heavy trauma or after trauma, or if we're feeling so overwhelmed by life that we just need somebody from the outside to give us some tools to help us move forward. Okay. All right. So the last chakra that we're talking about is the crown chakra. And the color associated with the crown chakra is purple. It can also be white. Sometimes you will even see that people will say gold can be used for the crown chakra, but the typical color that you're going to see is purple. And the Sanskrit term is Sahasrara, so it's a harder one. And the mantra is Om, or silence, just stillness, complete silence. We are living in a world that has constant stimulation through their phones or their computers or technology. I don't think most people know how to just be still. Silence is imperative for us, that we put our phones down and we get away from technology to let our thoughts and our feelings filter through, but also to connect us to God. We can't hear the voice of God or have the ability to hear our own intuition without ever even being in silent moments where we get to become in tune with that. We won't even recognize it. We're too busy drowning it out. And that's not healthy. That can make us not realize what our feelings are. And instead of mixing our feelings into what was somebody else's, we want to be able to identify our own unique feelings, our own unique understandings and wisdom in ourselves and in our own body, okay? So we want to talk about the crown chakra when we are born is actually that soft spot that a baby has. Remember, it's like dangerous. You got to be careful when a baby's first born. Right here, it's a soft spot. And then the skull hardens over a couple months. I'm pretty sure it's a couple months, if not like 2 months, or it might even be longer. I remember my sons. We did like an ultrasound on due to the fact that he was the 100th percentile for the head circumference. So it was taking more time for that to fuse, and everything was totally fine. But what amazed me was the fact that that's a reality, that this crown chakra is something that spiritual guided life force energy comes down from above, innervating into the baby until it fully seals and their energy body is able to sustain itself, which is really beautiful if you think about it. The endocrine gland is the pituitary gland, which is our master gland of our endocrine system. And the pituitary gland also is the only endocrine gland that actually produces some of the stimulating hormones that are sent to the other endocrine glands. No other endocrine gland makes its own stimulating hormones. So it's known, as I said, its nickname is the master gland. So it governs a lot and is really important for the homeostasis of the body. The mantra that this chakra utilizes is, I am conscious of myself, which is a really big deal. You know, some people are so not conscious of themselves that they don't realize when they're crossing other people's boundaries. They don't even realize intuitively or just naturally that somebody's upset with what they're doing. They might be codependent and overbearing, and they're so not conscious of it because they have not found balance in other chakras or life lessons that they need to come to. But also their crown chakra is completely out of balance. They're not conscious of what they're doing and how that affects the people around them. And somebody who has a balanced crown chakra is more aware of their actions, their words, how it affects the people that they love or people around them. They're more conscious of their behaviors and are more emotionally balanced. So it says a lot when somebody has that deep layer of consciousness. The crown chakra is our spiritual connection point, and this chakra, as I said, is a much higher frequency over the other chakras. And Reiki, when you become attuned to Reiki, Reiki actually flows down from above into the crown. So I would say right from God into the crown, down through the energy body, and then out through the palm of our hands. And the crown relates to our uppermost levels of consciousness. Insights of divine creativity can be given from God in this area, in the crown chakra, which happens outside of the normal conditions of relativity. What does that mean? I think some people be like, wait a minute, right? But I'm a logical person, or I'm a realist, or I'm a free thinker, right? And that's totally fine. One of the most important things you need to remember is I am not here to preach towards anybody. I am here to educate you. That is why this podcast exists. But I also am going to talk with you about my experiences. So we are spiritual beings in a human form. And we can't get away with that. We can choose to stay away from God. We can choose to stay away from spirituality. We can choose to not have a relationship with God. But that is not going to stop the fact that we were created. It's not going to stop the fact that I have this ethereal body that actually chi energy flows through that I'm not in control over completely, that comes down from above into me, that gives me life, okay? And the reality that the crown chakra actually has a lot to do with, am I even spiritual? Do I even believe in God? Do I even have that higher consciousness to care to have a relationship with God? And over the course of time, it's important for that chakra to become fully balanced, that we would come to terms with that. But that is a personal journey for each person. You can't force that on somebody. You can't make somebody believe something, right? But I would say that whether you want to believe or not, there's truth in it. And this has been known for a really long time through the factor that the ethereal body is not something that is quite as measurable to man as something like math, right? And as we have evolved, we've learned that there's a lot of things that we don't see with our naked eye that still exists, that we have gotten so advanced that we now are coming to terms with nowadays, or in the last couple decades, knowing that there's particles that we don't see with the naked eye. There's real things that are almost like invisible to us, like the auric field, but it's real and has been measured since the 1960s. So it's more about this factor of coming to terms with the fact of, how do I feel about it? What is life to me? Okay. And for me, just out of my experiences, yes, I 100% believe in God. Clearly, I teach Reiki. I'm a very spiritual person. Part of my work has put people in full remission from diseases that they say are irreversible. I've seen MS lesions disappear on the brain. I have seen a woman remove her bionic ear because she was able to hear. I have witnessed miracles. I was in a healing ministry and we prayed over people and witnessed miracles. That sometimes is so hard for people to wrap their head around. But I would say to you, you need to also have a relationship with God for you to even receive some of the things that God has for you. And that doesn't mean that you can't be logical. It doesn't mean that things can't be realistic on a level, but there are some things in life that you just can't fully explain. Like my mom was healed from being deaf, and she was 19 years old. And when I tell people that, it's like, what are you talking about? She was deaf. Like, really? She was deaf and she was healed? How is that possible? Well, because miracles happen, because God exists and things occur that we just can't explain in life. And so I would more so encourage people, don't just hold this wall against the concept of God in a way that's almost like you're angry at a God that you don't believe in, which doesn't even make sense. I find sometimes that atheists or people that don't believe in God show more anger towards, even when you talk about God or the concept of God, that doesn't even make sense to me when they don't even believe in Him. Instead, maybe just have an open mind and try to discover where the heart of God really is in your life, because to me, God is love, just complete love. And so why are we bringing this up? Because the crown chakra has everything to do with that connection to God. It actually finds balance in our ability to read spiritual things, to pray, to sing praises, to do and have a spiritual life. It actually helps our entire energy body and our body become healthy. It matters. And so it really comes into play when we're talking about the crown chakra. Okay. So moving on, as I said, we'll just go over that. Insights or divine creativity can be given from God here, which happens outside of normal conditions of relativity. This chakra radiates richness and a majestic strength when in balance. It's really beautiful. Having to do with our cells, it governs the master gland, our pituitary gland, responsible for growth and development, responsible for being a storehouse of many stimulating hormones, including ADH, cortisol, adrenaline, thyroid, puberty, human growth hormone, right? Like a bunch of different things. Ways to balance the crown chakra: praying, singing praises to God, meditation, deep reflection, doing the work of God, and feeling a spiritual purpose in life. Signs that the crown chakra is out of balance: invalidation, self-doubt, no acknowledgement of God or spirituality, being angry or resentful towards God. So you might be surprised that the crown chakra has a subject that you didn't expect today. Okay. All right. So take some time now that you have learned all 7 chakras. One of the best things you can do is answer these questions. What are some important things you learned about yourself through learning about the chakras? Which chakras do you know just from when I went over parts of your body that seem to constantly have pain or discomfort, or throughout your life have had issues, or where the trauma computes, have been the ones that you know you need to work on or that need more balancing? List a couple of these things. So maybe write them down. List any traumatic things that occurred around these times. This includes things like big emotional stressors, big changes, divorce, etc. And at times, it's really important for me to let you know that our chakras are in a life lesson mode. And this is nothing that we can control. Things when they are what I call shape shifting, when they are literally releasing a ton of things and having a disruption to their foundation, would be changing jobs, changing careers, divorce, moving into a new home, moving, period, right? Things that are bigger things. And when these happen, we need to remember that the body is going to show us maybe low back pain because these chakras are shape shifting and there's a lot of energy that's being gathered to allow that to happen, so that I can figure out what its new foundation is and where that will feel like home to you, or what that means to your identity and how things will change about the way you feel about yourself through that divorce or about relationships, right? As the chakra goes through shape shifting, that parts that it governs in the body become a little bit weaker at those times because so much energy is going to that change. And so those are times when you just want to recognize, I want to be gentle with my body. I want to do gentle things with myself. And over the course of time, you being more gentle and finding more rest through those big changes will allow that period to go quicker, because the body and the energy body will be able to handle it in a faster amount of time over a long or prolonged period of time if you don't take out the time to care for the body during it. So that completes the chakra system. And please know that anytime I'm going over anything, it's not about judgment. It's not about any of those things. I'm just sharing what I've learned, the experiences in my life. I also have witnessed things in my life due to the work that I've done and the things that I have been into. And so it's all for educational purposes. Remember to take what really is speaking to you. I hope it always helps when you listen to help you better yourself, find more balance and healing in your life, in your spiritual life, in your emotions. Also to help you live out a better life and be the best you can be. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Remember to speak life into yourself and into others. Have a blessed day.